Always lovely. Great. Cool. So we're excited to have Jamal Collins here today. I'll introduce him in a second, but for the first half, I'll be basically moderating Q&A with him. But if y'all have questions at the end of the talk, we'll go through kind of a live Q&A with the audience. So pop your questions into the chat. I'll be kind of monitoring that.
That should be fine.
And if you're on the call, please mute your mic. If you pop up, I will tell you. But thank you. Cool. Oh. We're good. We're good. Everyone's muted. Great. Cool. So Jamal Collins is a visual design consultant who teaches at-risk youth graphic design throughout the inner city of Cleveland, Ohio, with his program Creative Kids. Jamal provides these youth with the beneficial resources to develop the necessary skills that will introduce them into the creative field, providing a solid visual educational experience by guiding youth in developing the capacity for challenging their sense of imagery, creativity, systemic critical thinking, and preparing them for client-based practices. They explore the latest design technologies, such as Creative Cloud, photography, video editing, and they also learn about social awareness, marketing, branding, all of that kind of good stuff. And these are kids, 11 younger in school, grade school. So really, really cool stuff. So I guess just to kick us off, Jamal, I'd love to hear just a little bit how you got into design, what your journey has been so far, and what has led you to this work.
Okay, so I would like to say when I thought about it is that I was always a designer. We just did, design is kind of like a new term. So I was always into like creating my own characters, writing stories. I fell in love with Marvel early on. And then as I, got older and got into the early 80s, popular culture just kind of slammed my community. So we was breakdancing, we was rapping, we was doing graffiti and all of that stuff. And at the time it was not a lot of engagement for guys like me in high school, but I did find my way. I had a buddy who went to Ohio University, and I kind of fell in love with the campus. So I had applied to Akron U, and then I took something called design. I didn't know what the heck it was. And what's cool about it is that it was like 1990. So they had just got internet. I kind of beta tested the first Photoshop. So I kind of fell in love with, doing that stuff. I was trying to get into airbrushing and all that stuff. So that's kind of my introduction into design. Graduated, and I kind of graduated and got a job at PricewaterhouseCoopers and trying to work my way up the corporate ladder. Corporate kind of kicked me out, the economy tanked. So it kind of evolved from there. I was out of work for 5 years and I came back just trying to find my way in design. So at the same time, I was doing a lot of stuff like I was doing coding. I was in a Dreamweaver. I was doing flash animations. I was editing video. I'm selling stuff on eBay. So technology is kind of moving fast. It really wasn't a lot of mentorship. It wasn't a lot of, resources that I had at the time. But, I'm kind of evolving with this time as it was moving on. So the economy tanked, left me out of work for 5 years, and I started volunteering with the Boys and Girls Club. And later on, I joined as a art instructor. So we're just doing painting, ceramics, and drawing, and basic stuff like that. But it kind of took me out of my comfort zone. I'm getting into, creating curriculums. I'm getting into classroom management. They stole my car the second day I started work. So it's like all of this stuff, man. And so I got an opportunity to come in as I seen some computers and I just kind of presented the idea of doing some specialized work, and it kind of evolved from there, actually. So doing design. So I started traveling from one location to 7 locations, and I was recording those sessions too. So I'm doing exposure reads. So I'm exposing the kids to design by going into schools with my laptop. I'm doing speed art. So speed art is me designing something in Photoshop for an hour, crunching the time and adding some popular music to it to really engage them with it. So that's kind of how everything started.
Yeah, I think what you said, like everyone's a designer. Like I think that especially resonates true with like the kids that you're working with. Yeah. I guess how did Creative Kids get started? Like how did you sort of start integrating into these schools? How did you build that structure? Like, where did that all kind of come from?
It was just like me just jumping in and kind of doing it. So I think I just kind of got used to being outside my comfort zone and getting in the space of being outside of work too, because it was like 5 years being out of work and trying to find my way. So I'm kind of analyzing what I'm teaching. And I was at the same time, I'm doing a lot of development on myself too. So, I was kind of depressed during that time. So I'm having a tough time because I'm at the top of my top designer at the time. So I'm making a lot of money and then the economy tanking, then I can't find work. So I can't even get back to where I was at. So a lot of the stuff that I was looking at and reading just to help me develop my being productive, my mental habits, so I'm kind of decoding these books too at the same time. So I'm kind of getting into the psychological level of the kids back and coming back, like just being on the ground with them, understanding like what's working, what's not working. So, because I'm not like a traditional teacher, so I'm kind of like self-taught in a lot of areas. So I'm kind of working on them. Plus, I kind of know what it's like being in the inner city, and I kind of just get a bird's eye view of really what's going on and really how to connect with them. So I'm talking about staying out of gangs. I'm talking about, creating YouTube channels. I'm talking about, being gamers to really taking it to the professional level. I'm talking about being responsible at home and, things like that. So.
Yeah, I think something I noticed in some of your videos, like you focus really on like that authenticity of like focus on the content, like school is kind of in your way to get to like what you want to do. I'd love to hear kind of like how that gets received when you're communicating that message to kids of like focus on your content, like focus on creating, like get good at that, and like don't get stuck in like I don't like school, I hate school, that kind of vibe.
Yeah, I think one of the things is like, trying to come up with different ways of talking about design and really getting them to understand what a designer is. And that role is like really a role of activism. It's really a role of change and being able to be on the forefront of that. So kind of like, back when we was coming up, it wasn't practical, but now everybody has a microphone. Everybody has a voice. So everybody should be showing up and just kind of like really pushing. Like I'm pushing myself, physically, mentally. So I want to push them too. Like, well, let's have a conversation about how can I get into Nike now? Is it possible? We don't know. We haven't tried. Like, so, can I get on LinkedIn? Of course, LinkedIn is open for anybody. So I should be 14 on LinkedIn, presenting some work and having some conversations now when employers and, building these relationships. So it's like my job to really paint a picture. Like, I talk about, incompetent and unconscious. So you don't know what you don't know. But when I present these ideas to you, now you know that it's feasible and easy to have a conversation with my mom. Like, look, I'm dying to work at Adidas. What do I need to do? What do I need to do? Let's get on some buses, some planes, or whatever we need to do to have some conversations with some people. So, I want to push, I just want to see it myself because I'm talking to so many kids. I want to see, it manifest into like a kid just doing something like really pushing the envelope and letting them know that they can do it. One of the things is like I just see a separation in the adults and the younger designers as far as when I was going to design conferences. So I'm taking them on field trips so they could be in there. So even the design conferences got to change the way they do stuff a little bit to kind of make a way for the kids, so doing some programming for kids and having a space for them to come in and even presenting them, like showing their work and showing the stuff that they could do and getting paid to do it. Like it shouldn't be no difference. Like if I got a young photographer that's good, you should pay him what the other guys are paying. So, and he should know how much those rates are and, knowing his value and knowing his worth and knowing he's worth that. I think if you change their mindset and they know what their value is, then they'll be able to, really go after what they want. So I talk to kids like I talk to some adults and, I kind of talk to them like anything that I wanted to know. So I'm not holding back on prices. I'm not holding back on how clients work. I'm not holding back on what the school is doing. I'm not holding back on what they should be doing. So that's kind of my point of view.
Yeah. do you think that like that disconnect between the like more corporate world and like the world of like kids, is it just like about that the corporate world is just kind of ignoring this, or like are there like it's not creating enough pathways? Like how do you kind of think about that gap and bridging that gap?
Well, it's a disconnect in between the corporate world and education. And I think like you kind of shot me that question before. And I think like to successfully move from education to employment is some other questions that need to be asked. Um, so I kind of have wrote some down like, so what are the challenges, and kind of just doing some data, like what is the challenges, what interventions work, and how do we scale these ideas? You know what I'm saying? And I think it's like the apprenticeship type of thing, like the hands-on experience. So the thing is, like when we graduated from school, we just had a degree and we was unemployed, and that was the next stage. So it's not really like a lot of interaction between employment and education. So I think, and another thing is like the kids getting that hands-on, experience helps them make an easier transition into the job force too. So when I think about like the NBA and I think about the NFL, they're scouting guys in college and high school. I think corporate should do the same thing. But they should know who's the top guys at the universities, the top designers, and make the kids more responsible. So it's like if a guy wanted to work for Nike, it's almost like wanting to play for the Browns or play for the Cavaliers or something. So he should be like, companies should see his grades. Companies should be involved in what he's doing, almost like a mentorship type of thing. So it's almost like a conversation that he's having versus like, here's my resume. I'm like a student like everybody else. He's been groomed. He's been, like, I didn't really even see a corporate office until I got hired. Like I should have been in that space already. Now, it kind of changed my perspective. In high school, I probably wouldn't have been as goofing around as I was. Like I was goofing around, like it just don't make no sense because I didn't make the connect until I went to the college campus. I'm like, oh, this is where I need to be. Like they wasn't doing no college tours. I just got lucky type of thing. So I think that's what it is. Like, so, building these skills, finding jobs and having early conversations and, kids showing their grades, kids being able to go to these corporations and, everything is virtual now. So being able to just get this awareness that this is the place, this is what we do, this is the things that we're looking for. So we kind of know. So if I know what Nike is looking for, I keep using them as an example, but if I know what Nike is looking for as far as like grades, as far as how many sketches, then that gives me a tangible goal to go after. So I know it's not just one idea that they're looking for or, things like that. So.
Yeah, I think like also like just like these kids like have talent, like they can do the work. Like you said, like if they're doing photography as good as someone else who's like getting paid money, they should also get paid money. So I'd love to hear just a little bit about like the work that you've seen your kids create and like what has that been like, and if you have anything that you can kind of speak to, like a specific story.
Yeah, well, I got two photographers who kind of think almost like a family of photographers, actually. So I'm going on photo shoots with them, and I could kind of see how they're working. I'm doing some stuff like I could show some stuff if you want me to.
Yeah, that would be great.
All right, so I could talk about like the showcases. So can you see that?
Yep.
So I'm doing like a showcase like at the end of every semester. So we kind of collecting a lot of work that they're doing. So I'm starting off with just like Photoshop. So we just like really jumping into Photoshop, but doing some illustrative stuff too. So at the end, we're doing like posters that they're, so we had like an event at Rock Hall, the Rock Hall of Fame, and they're printing these posters out. So this is a guy named Elijah. So cool thing about Elijah is that he can't really spell. So one of the things is like he uses Google to spell his words. So I'm trying to help him sound it out at the same time, right? So I'm also like what I love about Elijah is that like he goes above and beyond the work that he gets. So a lot of kids get the project, they get it. Okay, I'm done. Then they're moving on and running off the same, to something else. The one thing that I saw out of him is that he's doing like 3 or 4 or 5. So I'm like, man, he's a designer, and it's like kind of cool because he's like the underdog. He can't really spell too. You know what I'm saying? So it's like one of those prodigy type things. It kind of reminds me of myself. So I'm telling the teachers like, look, this guy he's the dopest guy I got. You know what I'm saying? And what's crazy is that they move. So I lose contact with them. So I haven't seen them. So it's like this crazy things. Like I'm hoping that everything circle back around, because they move, they change their Instagram handle. I don't have an email. I know you're going to ask me about COVID. So COVID then made it even worse. So this kind of like the showcase back before I was doing the posters. So I just print out their work and kind of having their parents come because I was sharing a showcase with other consultants at the Boys and Girls Club at the time, right? So it was like doing dance and performance type of thing. And that's what they was kind of used to. This whole thing of doing designs with kids and teaching them college standard stuff is kind of new for everybody. Because I'm going in like, look, this Photoshop, this is what I learned in college. This is what y'all should be learning now. They don't have IMAX in schools. They don't have Adobe Creative Suite in the schools, in the, after school programs. Like when I'm sharing the stuff, the classrooms are not even set up to even be taught. It's just playtime. Like I got some IMAX in rooms where it's foosball tables and pool tables. So to get them to engage and come in is like difficult, and they're not getting graded too. So part of the thing is like school kind of puts them in a mode where if I'm not getting graded, they're not calling my mom, I'm not doing it type of thing. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of stuff that I'm going up against. So the ones that I can get, like you can see this right here, this is Illustrator. They in Illustrator, they proud of their work. They showing their stuff on Instagram. So a lot of them, it's still kind of early. So a lot of them moved on to high school too. So, you can see how proud he is. And, I'm on there with them too. So they, I do the work for them and keep showing them. So the YouTube channel was for them, me talking to them and, me engaging with them. You can see some of the stuff that they was doing. I'm going to talk about these young photographers I got. So these young photographers, I'm taking them to design conferences. I didn't go to a design conference until I was grown, right? So these guys like 12 and 13 sitting in the audience. I'm like, come on the stage with me. Like these guys I got them in my keynote type of thing. So they see themselves on the big screen. You see what I'm saying? So these two guys are photographers, and I got people sending me gear. So this guy, he's got some clothes called Ohio Against the World. So he sent me some gear. I handed it out to the kids. He put me on this, he put us on his Instagram. It's got a whole bunch of views on it. So, we go out doing, so this is some of the stuff. So on Instagram, he goes by Socks Photography. So it's some of the photography he's doing. But when I see him work, like I taught college level. I teach college level. I teach adults too.
Maybe so
college
many
students.
speeches about peace, about college. That talking about it's interesting to be honest.
So I'm teaching college level too, right? So I'm teaching some college students photography. We're going out on photo shoots, but it's not the same when I go with Socks Photography. Like when I see him work, like the college students was kind of just doing it for the work. They was kind of doing it for the grades. Other teachers kind of, depending on how mean a teacher was or what, the workload kind of affected them doing their photography and stuff. But when I'm with Socks Photography, he doesn't have any like manual, he doesn't have any college training, right? When I see him work, he's like I call him a mad scientist because he's really engaged. He's really focused, like really serious. Like I wasn't even seeing this in college students. I'm like, man, this guy's like, really got an eye. He's really like action type. Of course he got me in there looking cool. So, I gotta, give him some love. He's got me looking cool. So that's the showcase. I had another student do do this poster, and we took the poster to the cast, right? So this is Derry. His name is Derriante or something, but they call him Derry, right? So we did a design of the poster. We did a little contest. Whoever do the best cast posters, we're gonna take it to the Cavaliers. So we had them up in the Cavaliers stadium. So, he's back, he didn't meet no players or anything, but he's like getting free slushies. He's meeting people behind there and he's designing his work, right? So the thing is, like, Derry was kind of, I don't know what he did, but his mother had kind of put him on punishment. And one of the things the first thing that a lot of parents do for some reason is kind of cancel them for being in my program, right? So I'm scheduled to take Derry and his poster to the cast, and he's telling me he can't go. I'm like, why not? Like, my mother said I'm on punishment, I can't do nothing. So I'm like, get her on the phone. You know what I'm saying? like, look, it's me, the president. Like, it's not just me, it's like me, the president. This is a big thing. So I'm like, look, I'm gonna talk to him, So I called her, I talked to her, I was like, look, we're doing this big thing. This is what he did. I'm gonna talk to him about his grades. Like, this is what's needed, like, to really, change his life, is to talk to him in the car. Like, so me, the president of the club, we like, look, Derry, we need, you need to get your stuff together. You need to do what you need to do at home so you can do this other stuff. Like, it's, your attitude, it's all about attitude. It's all about mindset. So that's the thing, you know what I'm saying? So that's my main thing at this point is really like, learning the tools and learning Photoshop is cool, but I think the most important thing is mindset. I think it's imagination. I think it's attitude. I think it's, understanding what the big picture is. I think it's like really, I talk to I got like about 30 kids that I'm teaching online right now. And I'm talking about like a designer is really like designing your life. Like, forget these flyers. Like, how do I design my life? Like, I design these flyers. How do I map it out? Who am I going to be around? What am I going to be doing? Like, really thinking on those levels. Right. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. And a lot of people, I think, are about to follow Scott's photography. So giving him a little boost.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you talked about like navigating, just like kid gets in trouble, their parents like pull them out. Like, how do you kind of navigate, especially now, like in COVID times, like it's hard enough just to get things set up at the school. Like, you're not really in the right environment, and now the world is completely different. Like, what has that kind of been like, and how are you kind of thinking about it just in the new state of the world?
I think the thing is to ask questions. So I'm asking them, like, what's going on? How you feeling? More than just teaching. I teach a little bit, but I got like an 8:00 class. No one wants to cut on their camera. No one wants to. So it's like I'm teaching to myself. So I'm like, it's like bothering me. Like, why aren't we cutting on our cameras? Why aren't we talking and stuff? Like, are we asleep? Is this class too early? Is the class too late? So it's like trying to really figure it out. So I don't really get hung up in really, missing the ball on certain stuff, because I want to know, where they're coming from. So a lot of the girls is like, well, I'm just kind of rolling out the bed. I can't go on camera because my hair not done. So when they told me that, so then I kind of changed my outlook on it. So if I get a little bit of work, just a tiny bit, because they're not getting graded. So, and a lot of them are like tired too. So they in class all day. Like, I got a 6-year-old. She's in class from 8 to 11, right? She's a little shy. It's a little, so I'm still trying to figure out the space, really, because there's a lot of stuff that I don't like about it. So it's like, how do we change this and disrupt this, right? So how do I, this is our job as designers, to really get into the space now and really change it and disrupt what's going on, to fix it so everybody could connect into this new reality, this new space that we in. So that's the challenge. Like, so I'm just collecting the data and just seeing, like, how can I get some more engagement? How can I get, people to connect? But I mean, this right here is just changing itself. Like, we got 110 people on here talking about designing and change. So that's dope.
Yeah, I definitely feel you on talking to a room of people with their mic off, or with you're like, is anyone actually here? And they're all just in this little room. I guess like to your point on like we as designers are like we kind of have to make the change. We have to disrupt things. Like you're talking to a good amount of designers in this room, engineers, product managers, whoever joined the call with their video off. Like I guess how can we kind of get involved? Like where do you kind of see the opportunities for people to do the work that you're doing or get involved with that kind of thing?
I think I would say first is that kind of start at your home base. So, everybody went to high school, everybody went to college. I think start there and see, what's going on, what type of programs they have, and, have some conversations. And I think the overall thing is like, in the surrounding areas too. We got schools, we got like 2 different schools in 2 different districts. Certain districts is better than other districts. So some schools got design thinking, marketing, business, entrepreneurship, creating content, and some of them don't. So had that conversation. And I think another thing is just like, I gave a plug for Socks Photography is to plug in and find and scout new talent and, just get on Instagram, get on TikTok and see who's in the area, who's crushing it, and who needs some exposure. I think guys need like exposure. Like we got like a public like magazine, right? And they had like the best artists, the best photographers. It's all older people, not to take nothing away from their work, but I want to see Socks Photography. I want to see him get some PR, some work or some acknowledgement, and to talk to him and pull him under. Like, so when he's around me and I see another photographer, I'm like, look, can you talk to him about pricing? Can you talk to him about, the business and the game and take him underneath the wing? I think like one of my main problems, I think if just being out of work for 5 years, this was my connections, was my network. I didn't really have none. I ain't had no relationships. I just thought that you just get a resume, you get a portfolio, and then you apply for work. So one of the things is that I'm telling a lot of college students right now is like standing in front of your portfolio instead of behind it. So really having a voice, because people are going to pull you up. They want to pull up your Instagram. They want to pull up your YouTube channel and see what you're about. And this is the perfect way. Like I said earlier in this conversation, like everybody has a microphone. I should see work. I should see your thoughts. I should see what you're going through. I should see your struggles. And really, you could really resonate with the artists and who they are, not get to know them as soon as they hire you. Like people hired me, got to know me, and didn't like me. You know what I'm saying? Like, so now we can like, have these conversations and like tell my story. Like I got a backstory. I got a journey and I got, things about me that, people should know about and how I got to this point. Like it was rough and people like, that it's rough for me too. Like, so it's going to be okay. Like, just stuff like that.
I guess like out of all of those things, like to just put the pressure on the audience right now, like there's just like one thing that you would have everyone kind of do to just like get involved, contribute to like social change. Like what would that thing be?
I think to think about your younger self and what would you do or what would you say to your younger self, like the problems you had in college, the problems you had in corporate, like what would you do for your younger self and go and do that for somebody else? Like, I was in college, like kind of we was wasting our money on loans. We kind of renting houses. We should have just came together and bought a house. Now we got some property on campus, but we ain't have no older person coming in the real estate game and help us with that. So a lot of the stuff I'm doing, I'm just, going back and telling them like, I'm like the cool uncle that's coming back and telling them, giving them some game and giving them some hope. So, you want to give somebody some insight, give somebody some hope and, help them along. Like, I know they're not reading like Zeph Golden and Tim Ferriss 4-Hour Work Week. I read it. I'll just decode it and give it to them. So, get them the hacks. Like I talk about, study hacks, like how to read, how to do your homework, I ain't had these concepts. They just give us a book, give us some work, and then give us like really techniques to really like help us along. I think it's just like they kind of giving me questions on the test that they didn't teach us. Like, are you really trying to get us to retain this information, or you know, I'm going off on a tangent now. So,
If anyone has any questions, you can start popping them into the chat or use the hand raise feature on Zoom, which I think you have to click participants and then click on raise hand. But I guess just to like, while people kind of mull things over and hopefully have some questions, don't leave me hanging, HubSpot. I guess like, so you've done a lot of Creative Kids so far. Like, where are you kind of hoping it goes kind of in the future? Like, 5 years down the line, where are you hoping it will be?
I mean, hoping it to be more like an apprenticeship type of thing where I'm really getting kids into some employment, like, being in the middle of, the connection, like we said, like it's a misconnection. It's not a connection at all. Having a conversation between education and employment and helping that pathway. So getting them from education to employment and getting them placed and getting them some work and giving them some exposure. And, college too. So I talk to adults. So one of the things is I'm teaching like everybody. So a lot of adults want to start stuff too. So, talking about like everybody want to start a podcast, everybody want to, do all this stuff, but they kind of like stuck. So I'm kind of helping everybody get unstuck and creating something.
One question we have, could you say a little bit more about the field trips you've taken students on to see more corporate environments? Like if we hosted students, HubSpot, what would be the most useful things we could show or tell them about how we work?
Yeah. I took them to a place called Highland Software. So Highland Software is like a content management company. It's like a huge campus, almost like Google, closest thing you could get. They got slime boards and, barbershops in there and gaming rooms and all that stuff. And we kind of did like a little project. So one of the things was they was just trying to figure out like, what do people do during the day? Like they see people in these cubicles, but, really trying to see what they do. I took them to the Cavs, right? So we sat with the Cavaliers marketing and design team, and they kind of designed a quick little poster for Kyrie. Kyrie was injured at the time. So one of the things was that, I don't know, it may be a little boring to him. It may have been too long. They didn't have any snacks for him. So it's things like that we kind of figuring out. So also, like, I took him to a design conference. So we had a design conference called Weapons of Mass Creation, and they had a workshop. And the workshop really wasn't tailored towards a younger adult. It was more towards older kids, older people. And one of the things that he said was that don't add nobody that you don't know on LinkedIn. So I'm like, they don't know anybody. So this kind of going against. So I got to always pull them into the corner. Like, look, this is not what we want to do. We want to add people, right? So that was kind of the field trips I was doing, like design conferences. I had like a workshop at a design conference, and we did some design thinking projects. There was non-tech, which was cool. So we doing mind mapping. We using markers. We using sticky notes, and we kind of had some personas that was already defined, right? So we got a guy, he can't see, and sky's the limit. How can he go outside and play safely, right? So they cutting out like goggles that he can put on, and he's got little indicators on the side. So really digging deep into like a couple of mind mapping type design thinking type of things, right? So so we're kind of doing stuff like that to really engage him and do stuff. Also, like I had him designing some t-shirts. We printed those t-shirts and things like that. So giving them some incentives to like design something, create their own thing. Like they should have online stores. They should have, YouTube channels. They should have all of that stuff. Like every kid, I think everybody should have something. Like even everybody in here should have a YouTube channel or podcast, a ton of stuff on Medium, like, all of that stuff too. I think that's the new way you got to.
Have you done anything virtually, like, because we're all remote? Like, have you done any like bringing kids virtually to a company yet, or Is that something you're thinking about at all?
Yeah, no, I haven't. I'm just kind of teaching remotely in schools right now. So one of the things was that a lot of the kids, you know, didn't have computers or internet, right? So then we got multiple kids in multiple houses, and they're not giving everybody a computer at the same time. Another problem is that phone numbers has changed. You got two or three, four or five phone numbers, or you don't have their emails. So, the scramble between March and June was like crazy, just trying to get kids computers, right? And then we got COVID going up and down. So they kind of partially in school. Now they back home type of thing. And then we got parents that's not used to homeschooling type of thing too. So another piece that was always like one of my issues was like parent engagement too. So I got kids coming in, rocking out on Photoshop, and their mother don't have or father don't have no idea that they're even doing this type of stuff. Right. So I had a kid that didn't even go to the Cavaliers little thing because he was in trouble. And I talked to him too. So it's like the same conversation. Like, this is the point where he like, damn, I came in here with the cast. I'm designing this stuff. Let me get my stuff together. He can't even make that connection because his father didn't let him come. Like, I'm waiting for him to show. Like, I didn't even know he wasn't even showing up. Like, I talked to his father. I'm thinking we good. The bus show up and he's not on there. So it's like, these is the kind of challenges, that go on. So
Yeah, how do you like, just like, you're one person with all of these kids, how do you kind of stay on top of just like all that communication? Like how do you just make sure all of these kids are kind of where they need to be when they need to be? Like, that seems like a lot to juggle.
yeah. It's kind of easy. After a while you get to know them. So I'm at this location. I know I got these top guys. So some of them kind of come and go, right? But then I got some like guys that's consistent. Like they then I got a group of girls too. So they come in and they confident, they want to work, they like their stuff. The problem is that they don't have it at home. It's the thing, like when we was in college, the student center and the computer lab was in two different places. We didn't have computers in the student center. We would have never got nothing done. So it's the kind of the same thing. Like, so one of the first things I did was I bought a computer in 1995. So that was like a turning point for me. Like, it was like $2,500 for Mac Performer back then, but I knew I needed it at home to compete because my grades was suffering at Akron U because I didn't have this stuff at the house. So I could really focus and do some deep work. The problem is that they don't have access. They barely got an internet or they do have it and they're not using it. They consume it. That's the one problem. The problem is like some of them don't have it, but a lot of them do have it. A lot of them have Jordans. They got the PlayStation 5. Instead of that PlayStation 5, they should have a MacBook. Instead of watching videos, they should be creating something. So the thing is, like, we got oversaturated with all this technology and all this information, and it turned to a bunch of consumers. They don't create nothing. They just watching and buying and, that type of thing. So that's part of the challenge too. It's like, y'all got to create, quit looking at everybody else's channel, create your own.
Yeah, we have a question in the chat kind of related. Like, do you reckon that in showing children at an early age how to utilize social media for personal branding and self-development, does that contribute to sort of a healthier just engagement in general with the online social spaces?
Absolutely, because we kind of getting into, when I'm talking about YouTube channel, I'm really talking about cinematography. I'm really talking about storytelling. I'm really talking about painting a picture and really kind of thinking on those levels. So, to start it, you got to write out a script. A script is a story. It's like, when I'm talking about writing to somebody at Adidas or Nike, like, we got to craft out a letter. What you gonna put in it? Like, even when they sending me work, like, I don't have no name. They just send me attachment, nothing in the subject. Like, the sentences is not punctual. So I'm like, you need to write out this email and tell me exactly what's going on, punctuation and everything correct. So even on levels like that, those little small tangibles Like I'm kind of sneaking that in there. Like parents should be sitting with kids and crafting out like what we gonna put on this YouTube channel. What we gonna talk about? What's the intro? What's the outro? What's the meat and potatoes in the middle of it? Okay, let's study some other cinematography. All right, so now when we look at cartoons, or we look at movies, what's the Lion King about? What's the backstory? What's the challenge of the hero? What's the villain? Who's your villain? What's your, what I'm saying? So you could relate to who's my villain. Like who's my Yoda? Like, so I'm like the Yoda, you like the story, that type of stuff. So the hero's journey, understanding sales. What is marketing? Like they should know what marketing is now. Like you kind of marketing yourself whether you like it or not. So if you got an attitude and you don't like doing stuff, you kind of marketing yourself as this, you putting yourself in that box, right? And the teacher's responsible for that too. Like I flunked the second grade and part of I'm with the guys I'm with the knuckleheads too. So, I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but yeah. So I think everybody's role is kind of, it's like a full circle: education, teachers, the designers, and
Yeah, we have a question from Spencer. Spencer, if you want to unmute, you can. Or I can read it.
Yeah, sure. Sorry. Hi, Jamal. I just had a question kind of related. So earlier we saw like these beautiful prints, posters, amazing end products by these kids that you work with. And I was just wondering, I really related to your journey as someone who, I now work in design, but never had a design education or really thought I could be a designer until I was an adult. And so how do you sort of when you're just starting to work out with kids who have had no prior opportunities to get into design, how do you sort of break the ice with design? What kind of activities do you do with them that helps raise their confidence and show them what they're capable of? I'm just wondering how you sort of early on sort of empower them and show them what they can do.
Yeah. Just I'll start off with the basics, right? So kind of the basics in the tools and what they could do. So I got a couple exercises that can kind of get, here's shapes, here's layers, here's the pen tool, here's Photoshop, here's some examples on what to do. So what I'm really doing is showing them some other people's work, right? So let's recreate this. Why are we doing this? We kind of get into the head of the designer. So really paying attention to detail. So once they kind of see me, and then I could sit there for a couple minutes and design a magazine cover or CD cover, mixtape cover, or something like that. So we see the background, we see the artist, we see the type. I put some effects on there, and then I can just jump into Google, and then I can just do a search on movie posters. All right, so now I'm pulling up Black Panther. We can see different guys. How many guys are in here? He's facing this way. I got the text up here. I got these clouds down here. I got the text. Let's look at another one. So once we can decode on how I know how to do it, the back end, the rest is easy. So if I show you how I, edit a film, what's the film? Let's break it down. It's the beginning, it's the middle, it's the end. Okay, we colorized it. What's the transition? What's a B-roll? So once I understand certain terms, selecting, talking to the program, once I, get into that aspect, then we can see and decode stuff. So it's just getting that eye ready. So now when they go to the movies, you see posters oh, I know how they did that. Oh, I see what he's doing. So it's kind of really just giving that early exposure. Plus I'm living a life as a designer myself. So they tapping into me, they following me, they want to see me. So I'm going on photo shoots myself. I'm creating YouTube channels for them too, right? So I'm studying what should they be thinking about? So then I come back here's a hack on why, here's how you can speed read, right? Here's marketing, and this is why you should be marketing something, right? So what's a linchpin? A linchpin is a little piece in the wagon wheel, and without that piece, it falls apart. So that's what Zeph Golden talks about. When I fell in love with how Google works, right? Eric Schmidt talks about a smart creative, and what that is. So having deep technical knowledge, having a creative flair, having some business savvy. So I'm kind of getting into that too. So touching on that, they should know what marketing is. What is marketing? What's this YouTube channel? What is this for? Why am I sharing this stuff for? What is this? So just having these conversations going back and forth, I can kind of see who's in it and who's not in it for the long haul. You know what I'm saying? So that type of thing.
Hey, if you want to unmute, you can ask your question. If you're out there. Maybe. Or I can read it. Okay. What is the design scene like in Cleveland? How are the kids getting involved there?
The design scene in Cleveland. Oh, man, that's my toughest question all day. I don't know. You know what happened to me? I'm kind of like in the art scene. So it's like a difference between the designers and the artists. I kind of like straddle the fence on those sides. So it's like the artist not communicating, or, you know, they're not in the same space, right? So I'm kind of with the artists, and it seems like, to me, kind of segregated, kind of, sort of, right? It seems like to me a little cliquey too. So we got different cliques and we can't merge together, it seemed like. So I want like an ecosystem where everybody is all together, where these guys can come, you know, it was a show back in the 70s. It was a New York school, and it was the dancers. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it was like a bunch of creatives all underneath the same house. So I want like a kind of like a incubator ecosystem where we got designers from all levels. So college students just come and we could just, you know, be in one space and come up with these ideas. It's almost like, you know, Apple, you know, they was in the garage. They came up with the concept of, you know, creating these computers and all of that stuff. So that type of thing is really like a vision for mine that I would love to see. Like, guys just come and just, you know, play some music, light some incense, and just get to design and creating stuff, sending some emails and pushing this culture and really trying to break some stuff.
We have a question from Henry. If you're here, unmute. Oh, wrong person unmute. Henry asked, what are some things we can immediately do to help with the initiative that you've started?
Send me an email. Send me an email and we can open up the conversation. I know everybody got their own type of view of what they think and what they want. A lot of people have been kind of donating, you know, computers and stuff. I think I'm kind of bogged down for these next 2 weeks, but at the beginning of the year, I really want to, you know, kick off and get something going where some kids is coming in, and, you know, like everybody in here should be assigned to like one designer and be a coach for them and see their work and see their grades and have them accountable for tapping in and checking in on them. And like they coming and checking in, you know, like the mentee's supposed to do. A lot of these kids is like super entitled and they want you to chase them down, which I'm like, look, you the mentee, you can need to call me, type of thing. So yeah, that type of thing. Kind of what I said before, start at your home base, college, university. I wouldn't talk to my college like 10 years later, right? So just trying to see, you know, some work. To me, like when I went to my college, they're kind of doing the same stuff. Like the professor never left. So, you know, and he's never been in the trenches before. So he doesn't have the same outlook on, you know, what a designer does and what he needs, his role, and, you know, how tough it is to be a creative. Like that's one of the toughest jobs in the world, is to be creative, because you need to be in sync with the company, your creative director, who's ever over you. You know, everybody has a personal way of how they do something, and you might be out of sync. They might not like what they see or what you're getting from them. So, you know, I tip my hat to anybody that's like being a creative, being a designer. It's like tough.
Cool. Anyone have any more questions from the chat, from the 85 of you still on the call?
Unmute and ask me.
How are you staying sane during quarantine?
I'm used to it now. So look, I think like once you come out your comfort zone. And like, I think because I post a lot of content, right? So I'm a creator myself. So it's just kind of figuring my way in this new space. So you got to think again, I was out of work for 5 years. That's a long time. Like I was getting little jobs here and there. I'm getting unemployment, but I really wasn't sustaining nothing. I wasn't as popular as I was now. So I had to, recreate myself. I had to, like I said, create these videos. And the reason why I created the videos just to see my teaching style. Right. But then I started seeing something else. I was seeing a connection that I was making. So I show that connection and you feel how I felt and how we feel together. So it's almost like, when you have a conversation with somebody, you have an experience with somebody, people say like you had to be there. So when the cameras is rolling, it's like you're there type of thing. Right. So I think, a big thing is just like, creating content, creating a personal brand. I think I'm strong on that. I think LinkedIn is the best place to do it. All my content is scaling at 100% on LinkedIn. So, it's like getting those impressions and getting people to see you and know who you are. So, I mean, I was freaking out probably like in March, all my programming got cut. So, yeah. I had started, one of the things I did a podcast, real short, like so Zoom interviews. I was calling all the creatives and all the photographers and architects and all the people in my network that I knew, and I was having a conversation with them about COVID-19 and being a creative and what they was doing. So that's on my YouTube channel. I probably talked to like 25, 30 people. So a lot of people that's like, movers and shakers in Cleveland, Columbus. So questions?
I have a question. I'm not an artist nor designer, but you said that in Cleveland, the artists and designers are kind of not congregating in the same spaces. What would you call the differences between an artist and a designer in that case? Because like, right. I would have thought that they would have been in the same spaces.
Oh, yeah. Let me pause my phone. Sorry about that. So a designer is kind of like work for hire, right? So I'm kind of like creating stuff for like, a client. So I might not like the work. So I'm getting paid for that. An artist is kind of doing stuff that he likes to do. So it's like he's kind of, I think that's the difference. So a lot of artists are like painting and stuff like that. So I'm kind of merging over into those two different spaces, right? So I was in my first art show just recently, which was cool. I did a digital print type of thing. So, they kind of run together too. But did I answer your question?
Yes, it did. It did. I definitely see there's possibility that people, how they may define themselves too, could kind of pop up into that sort of difference. Like, I guess at any point in time, someone may be an artist, but then they're thinking about, in some instances, I'm a designer. I was just thinking of it.
Yeah. I'm talking about like more like fine arts too, like painting and things like that. So the painters are kind of has his own type of style, right? And that's I like that. I like that outlook because somebody is really hiring you for what they saw you do versus like, oh, you do designs? Can you do, just wedding brochure without kind of looking at my work? So that you kind of raise your value that way too. I think a lot of the problem with design happened is that technology moves so fast, it commoditized the design work. So we got stuff like Fiverr, we got stuff like Canva. So now I can just get on Canva. I don't even need to know design. So that's why it's important to get in front of that portfolio and create your own, like, have a personality tied to the work so they know who you are versus just getting in Canva. Right. So I can get in Canva and just make a whole portfolio, which is, it's cool for the company, but it made the value of the designer go down. So.
And then last question, is there anything that you're working on for next year or your next project that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, just have more conversations on really building a pathway from education to employment. Really, just, you know, having an apprentice program and, you know, having some guys who really want to show up, not just like, oh, you guys go in there, they doing design in there type of thing, like really handpicking some guys to really have some conversations. So be on the forefront of that, actually, and trying to figure out, you know, just trying to reach as many people as possible. So I'm talking to guys at universities. I'm, you know, reviewing portfolios. You know, I'm talking to older people on, you know, everybody want to create something now. A lot of people kind of scrambling too, because of COVID, because we are virtual now. Like, people scared to get on camera, people scared to talk, people scared to create stuff. So it's like a lot of biases that people have and a lot of things that they kind of struggle with. Just getting in the space of just creating something. Like, it's all free. YouTube is free. I don't have to wait for a network to pick up me to do a reality show. I just have my own reality show. You know, I want to cook. I can have my own cooking channel. You know what I'm saying? Like, this stuff that we should be doing. Like, kids should be, you know, anybody should just be doing this stuff. Like, so thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming in too and having this conversation with me. It's cool.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jamal. I think just to wrap up, definitely check Jamal out, jworking.com. I think Henry's question resonates true. If you want to, you know, reach out, get involved, donate, definitely do that. But thanks so much again, Jamal, and thanks everyone for your questions. And have a good rest of the week.
Add me on to YouTube, so you can find me at jworking, JAYWORKING. Add me on LinkedIn too, Jamal Collins. I'm on Jamal Collins on Facebook too. So my Instagram is jworking. That's my handle too. So thank you. If anybody else got any questions, email me too. That's jcollins013@gmail. I'll stick it in the chat real quick. It's at the top of my website too, though. So.
Yeah, Quentin dropped your site, and we can also make sure, like, if people are also interested in reaching out, we can batch anything too, if that's easier for you, because you mentioned you were busy over the next couple of weeks.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Appreciate it. It was a pleasure, everybody. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Quentin, for this opportunity. It was dope.
No, thank you so much for coming in.
Absolutely.
All right. Have a great rest of your week.
All right. Take it easy, everybody. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.